In the second part of the mask series, we will dig deeper into vector masks. If you haven't seen part 1 about pixel masks, check out the link in the description. In the pixel mask, we use the pixel layers to create a mask. In a vector mask, we can use vector layers. For example, instead of using a pixel mask to separate an object, we can also trace the object with the vector tools in Affinity. Here are a couple of tracing tips that you might already know. Lower the opacity of the layer so that you can see what you're tracing. To subtract an area, just create a new path or a vector object on top of the existing one and select both layers in the Layers panel. Right-click on the canvas and from the Geometry menu, choose Subtract. Once the curve is ready, make sure to set the opacity back to 100% and drag this to the icon of the layer we want to mask. As the curve is going to be used as a mask, unlike the pixel mask, the color really doesn't matter. Black, white, or any color will do. The important part is that it needs to have a fill. If it's not filled, the vector layer is not visible and therefore when used as a mask, it will block everything. Another important item to keep in mind is that you need to drag and drop it on top of the icon of the layer you want to mask, so that it acts as a clipping layer. If you drop it on the name of the layer, it will become a child layer and will not mask. Keep also in mind that the border outline is a part of the mask. To demonstrate that, I'll clear the fill and then adjust the border outline. As you see, the border of the curve is acting as a mask, which could be used to create interesting effects. If you want a sharp pixel perfect mask, you probably would keep the border outline thickness to 0. Now that we know how to use a vector mask, let's go through some options. First of all, the opacity of the mask. As we know by now, a fill is required to mask, and no fill does not mask. So basically, the opacity or the transparency of the fill determines the strength of the mask. By adjusting the fill opacity of our vector object, we can control the opacity of the mask. In pixel mask, the grayscale color determined the opacity, and with vector mask, it is the opacity of the fill. So if we want a fading mask, we can use the gradient tool to fill the curve with a gradient and then adjust the fill opacity of the ending point. I used a linear gradient, but it should work with any type of gradient. Pretty cool. Let's reset the fill and talk about softening the mask. Using a vector mask will create razor-sharp edges. If you want to soften or feather the mask, you can apply a Gaussian blur effect to it. One way of doing that is using the Quick Effects panel and enable the Gaussian blur. Increase the radius to blur the vector object, effectively softening the mask. I'll zoom in so you can better see the result. As the vector mask is just a layer with a special purpose, we can also apply live filters to it. If we add a live Gaussian blur filter and drag and drop it onto the vector mask and then increase the radius, we get the same effect as the Quick Effects blur, effectively softening the mask. As mentioned, we can add any live filter to it. For example, let's add the glitch filter to play around. Before we experiment, we got to make sure it is applied to the mask by drag and dropping onto it. And now we get some pretty interesting results by applying different glitch effects. Don't forget that the mask still can be edited by using the vector tools. I can use the node tool to modify the curve and it will automatically update the mask. While the vector is applied as a mask, sometimes this makes the editing of the mask easier as you can directly see the result. Normally, you wouldn't use vector masks to hide parts of a realistic photo or apply them to adjustments, since their sharp edges often make the result look artificial, unless that crisp effect is what you're going for. On the other hand, vector masks are incredibly useful in graphic design, where you often need to quickly crop, frame, or fade an image. Combined with Affinity's new Mesh Warp feature, you can even create dynamic and creative fading effects. They are also excellent for text-based designs. You can instantly use any text layer as a precise, scalable mask for images or textures. By the way, the vector mask doesn't need to be a single curve. You can create multiple curves or vector objects and group them. Now the group with the curves can be applied as a vector mask. You still have the possibility to modify the curves in the group while it's being applied as a mask. And as a final note before leaving you, Vector and pixel mask can be combined so you have the best of both worlds. You could, for example, use a vector mask to do the initial cutout and then use a pixel mask with a brush to finalize the rest of your mask. In the next episode, we're going to take a look at masking using clipping, so make sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss that video. Thanks again for tuning in, and hit the like and subscribe buttons before you leave, and until the next video. So you stick to the end. Here's a funny video for you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
I wish that we could lose this crowd. Maybe it is better this way. We hurt each other with the things we want to say. We could have been so good together. We could have lived this dance forever. But now who's gonna dance with me?